Hello, it's Animal. I'm back. I'm back from the grave. I'm happy to say that I've completed a book. This is now my seventh book in publication right now. This is in a new edition of the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, or Lao Tzu, if you prefer the more modern pronunciation, which I don't. Anyway, I'm quite proud of this work. You can get it now from Amazon for a very reasonable price, despite the state of the global economy and the tariffs. You could still pick this book up for under $15. So, yeah, I'm quite happy with the work, quite happy with the result. I hope you guys check it out. If you're not familiar with the Tao, it is a collection of wisdom thought to be from around 500 years before Christ, and it's from China. It's been attributed to a kind of mythical figure, Lao Tzu, and has been a seminal work of philosophy that spawned both a religion, and it also has influenced a great many thinker throughout the ages. And it continues to be relevant today. And in my studies of the Tao, I realized that there were a lot of translations, even a lot of the most popular and well respected translations, tended to engage in a kind of presentism, a kind of ascribing a modern moral overlay onto ancient wisdom. So, with the advent of artificial intelligence, I decided to see what the original Chinese text had to say exactly and not rely on other people's interpretations. I came to this decision after reading 8 different translations in English and realizing how different they all were from each other. And so I thought to myself, what does the actual Chinese text say? I'd like to know. And so that led me down a kind of a long journey of scholarship, diving into the text and using both artificial intelligence as a translator down to the level of individual characters to disambiguate possible meanings, as well as drawing from extensive notes of other scholars in the field. So, I can show you like I went through quite a number. This is an excellent edition with a ton of notes. So this was a very useful copy. But I read many of the. This is also one that I highly recommend by DC Lau. Very, very good edition from the 1960s. But yeah, so went through a lot. This is also a very interesting and worthwhile one. A whole bunch of different versions of this book and came out with my own. So this is the first of a series that I'm going to be writing about Taoism, and I'm excited to share it. So I'm just going to read a little bit from my introductory text. Let's see. So I actually put the introduction at the end because I didn't want it to influence people's thinking. I wanted to just present the text. But I'll read you a section of my notes. I took great care to bring the words. Excuse me, I have to cough. I took great care to bring the words of the suave sage, spiritual iconoclast of old China to life, with a special emphasis on clarity of meaning and intent, often absent from the work of my competitors. Modern readers may approach the Tao Te Ching with preconceptions about what it should say. This translation may challenge such expectations in various ways. The author has endeavored to proceed from a firm commitment to find out what it, in point of fact, does say, aspirations aside. To this end, you will note that I've preserved some awkward phrasing here and there to provide readers with a more literal translation, to allow them to interpret the text on their own, as opposed to providing my own poetics. For example, in chapter 74, we have, "If people always feared death and someone acted wrongly, I could seize and kill them. Who would dare?" Or in chapter 38, we see, "Superior ritual acts, and when none respond, it rolls up its sleeves and throws itself at people." By leaving such odd phrasing intact, I am placing considerable trust in the reader. My aim was a substantive, philosophically robust translation that successfully preserves elements often sanitized or erased completely by contemporary translations. The analysis that follows draws from scholarly assessments in the field of Chinese philosophical and religious history. Here and there, in my endnotes especially, I reference key academic works that document patterns relevant to this translation. Let me skip ahead a little bit. So here we go. When a modern author applies their own morality to an older text, this may also be referred to as presentism in literary criticism or historical analysis. Presentism involves interpreting or reworking past works through the lens of contemporary values, ethics, or cultural norms, sometimes at the expense of understanding the original context, intent, and meaning. In the case of an author adapting the Tao Te Ching, it might manifest as a subtle or not so subtle infusion of their modern perspectives into a text rooted in ancient Chinese philosophy on, say, gender roles, hierarchy and authority, passivity in the face of injustice, acceptance of suffering and violence, the elitism of the sage, or disdain for knowledge and education. The process appears to proceed like so. A modern translator understands the world through their own particular moral lens, saying, "It is so. Therefore, the Tao must accord with my views," and then proceeds to rewrite it. It is probable that much of this process is unconscious, that translators infuse the work with their suppositions about reality without realizing it as a creative act. We need to humble ourselves enough to first ask, is it possible that this ancient text has remained valuable for good reason without our meddling? Is it possible it contains wisdom that might exceed the modern sensibility? The assumption is that progress is linear and that we know more than the ancients. In some cases, this may be true, but it would be a fallacy to conclude that it is always true. To their credit, sort of, most of these authors probably didn't realize the extent to which they may have been burying the lead. People who miss the point, proximally and for the most part, are blissfully unaware of that fact. We see what we want to see, we hear what we want to hear. The only way around this is to employ methodological tools to systematically probe one's own biases and cognitive distortions, something few people do, even, especially, perhaps, in academia. What I mean by this is that when one comes across something that goes against a deeply held belief or truism, it becomes difficult to employ reason and investigate it thoroughly. This is a process I described as existential guarding, a mechanism by which we automatically miss information in both conscious and unconscious ways. Suffice it to say that many popular, vernacular, and poetic English editions are guilty of this sort of presentism in ways that change, distorted, or missed meanings in the Tao Te Ching. That gives you a taste of the introduction anyway. So, the Tao offers a lot of practical wisdom. It talks a lot about um, ideas like not overextending oneself, not filling the cup all the way to the brim, leaving that extra capacity. It talks about the power of intentional non-action, of doing less. It talks about it frames a lot of things as paradox. So it talks about the ways in which the strongest and most successful people or institutions in the world are often the ones that yield, the ones that bend. It draws a lot of analogies to the natural world. talking about how what is dead is rigid and hard, and what is alive is yielding and bends. And so it offers very in a very few number of words, a lot of really profound wisdom. And I've tried to be extremely faithful to both the intent and the meaning and the historical context of the time in which the text was written. And I backed up all of my translation choices with extensive endnotes, and I believe it's a very strong edition that will challenge some readers and challenge some scholars to stretch their understanding of what the Tao is really about. So, anyway, with that, that's really all I had to say today. I'll also drop that I'm working on 2 new projects that I'm just over the moon about. I can't tell you anything about them yet. They're too much in the workshop, but I am profoundly grateful and profoundly excited to be able to do the work that I'm doing right now, and I think it's going to have a major impact. Regardless of its reception in the world, it's already had a profound impact on me. So, again, to I hope that I'm worthy of the task that I've set out for myself, and again, just super grateful to be able to be walking this path as a creative and really feeling in true alignment with my own nature and with my highest value to the world. So, yeah, I'm just really thriving right now professionally. And yeah, that's it. Check out my book if you're interested. There's also 6 other books that I've published that you can find by searching for Animal Taggart on Amazon. That's really the only place you can get them unless you are in Albuquerque. You can also visit Organic Books in Nob Hill. Thanks. Hope you have a great day.